Hey everyone, welcome back to Dev Radio, where we have cloud solution architects on to talk about some of the interesting journeys and experiences and the things they're doing with the Azure platform. As always, we got Matt. How you doing today, Matt?
Doing good.
I love the new microphone setup. I think the whole audience is going to be really excited.
Can you hear me better?
And then we got Chris Tremblay here today. Chris, how are you today?
Good. Just making sure my mic was on.
Yeah, that's the number one thing. I can't tell you how many times I've started talking and my microphone's muted. So today we got Chris. He's been on this really interesting journey. Not only as a developer, but coming from stuff that you wouldn't normally think of, coming into Microsoft, and that whole, I always jokingly call it the cold pool culture shock of coming from the OSS development world into the Microsoft world, developer world, which is kind of essentially OSS now. Chris, I was listening to your story when we were chatting. I said, hey, we got to get this on Dev Radio. This is the type of thing I think people would love to hear your experience, love to hear your journey. So I really, just from the top, how did you get started in dev?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. First timer here. So happy to be here. Got my mic working and the video's up. So, but yeah, no, I just always had a love for building things. I think it goes back to childhood, right? Loving to tinker with things, right? You get a toy for a holiday, you take it apart, see how it works. Maybe it's a bicycle, swapping out the wheels, just breaking things that don't, really need to be broken, or fixing things that aren't broken, right? That's the saying. My father was always handy, so learning from him, just seeing him with a hammer, I just love building things. And I got exposed right when in the mid 90s in high school to computers in a computer class, and we could just decide what we wanted to build, right? We had folks doing C++, folks doing web development, and I really gravitated towards like taking that desire to build and craft something and figure out what it's all about, and taking it to the next level. So that's really how I got into computers, was really like static web development, like Web 1.0 in the mid 90s.
So you telling me you built a website on your Dreamcast too? Because that's how a lot of us got started, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. Like in school, just learning HTML, just tags, all static, really no JavaScript. It's just like when the web was just being born. That's kind of how I got started, and then obviously learned a little bit of C++, and that's when I knew I loved this. Right, I knew I liked building things, tangible, physical with my hands, and then I was like, this is the same thing. It's just virtual, solving problems, and getting instant gratification. So yeah, all started in the mid 90s with Web 1.0 for me.
So before you came to Microsoft, you were telling me that you were a Java dev, and that I can tell you from personal experience, I was definitely one of those Java hardcore people in college. I was anti-Microsoft, had a Linux OS running on my school computer. Um, how do you go from there to going to work at Microsoft? Like, I'm
Yeah,
super
well,
interested.
it's a crazy journey because I love building stuff, and going to college, like I knew like I wanted to pursue computers. I just didn't know what. Like I didn't Web 1.0, static web, like that's really not computer engineering or computer science
Yeah.
that you would get at an academic level at the university. But I knew that's what I wanted to do, so I went into computer science. I went to University of Rhode Island, and to be honest, like it was tough, like the math, the physics, calculus, physics. Like I was like, is this really what I signed up for? And it wasn't until I got to the real world that I knew what I was taking those classes for, like algorithm design, calculus, physics. It was all just learning how to problem solve, right? And I knew, like, at the end of the day, if I could stick with this, if I can figure out how to study hard, like I will get that gratification again. This is just teaching me again how to problem solve, how to figure out problems. So I did. I went to computer science, and I knew this is what I wanted to do. I just didn't know what. Like, do I still want to build web? Do I want to do terminal development? Again, all of the university was teaching me how to problem solve. I would go to class every day, and I was solving physics problems, math problems. I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, to be honest. But I stuck with it. Got an internship. And a lot of the technologies that we were learning at the time in the mid 90s was Java, right? It was open
Yeah.
source. So I got exposure to Swing development in college. And this is, if you're familiar with Swing, this is the user interface sitting on top. So think terminal
Yeah.
development. So I was like, all right,
Drag and
this
drop
is
user interface for Java, right?
yeah. So I
Yeah.
took an internship doing pharmacy system development for a pharmacy here based out of Rhode Island, and it was awesome. I got to apply some of these principles that I learned in college and start writing Java software. But I knew my heart was still like with web, right? Like
Yeah.
presentation layer, delivering awesome websites. So I knew I wanted to get back at that at some point, but I was becoming proficient in Java, so I stuck with that, and then bounced around quite a bit doing Java. I did make a change from terminal development. I was doing terminal development for a gaming system. For a gaming company rather, and he's still using Swing, but I knew I wanted to transition into web, and that's when I did it. In early 2000s, I transitioned right into the finance industry, and I've been there for the last 15 years or so doing enterprise web development with Java, and it's been great. Um,
So it's interesting because you come as a Java dev, and then the next step in your story that we heard about is you come into the Microsoft world. And so a lot of people think that, hey, if I'm going to interact, even not if you're a Microsoft employee, if I'm going to interact with Microsoft Cloud Platform, I have to adopt the .NET, and I have to relearn everything I've ever learned. But this is a new, more I'd say a more open Microsoft than it's ever been, especially on the cloud side of things. So you, as a Java dev, you're coming into Microsoft. What was that like?
it was shocking. It was eye opening, right? Like I I was only on a PC for a short time in during high school, and when I had my home personal computer, Windows 3.11. College, everything was on a Mac. We were learning everything. We were in our labs were all on a Mac. Um, and I've been on a Mac for years. So doing Java, open source development, full stack software development, I just didn't see, I guess I didn't think outside the box. I thought this is great. This is where I'm at. I thought Azure and Microsoft was all .NET, like you said. I was pleasantly surprised to see that Azure treats Java as first in class, right? And I think that's kind of the misconception that's out there. I was on a call earlier today. It's like those customers, and I was one of them, right? That we're deploying to AWS. We have that large presence. We think like this is a home for our Java applications. If we don't know about Azure, we don't know what we don't know. So it was pleasantly surprising, and I never thought I'd be wearing Microsoft. The camera mirror. I never thought I'd be wearing Microsoft apparel, but now I love it. Right now, I'm on Windows. I'm using WSL daily. It's just yes, it's
Yeah,
pretty crazy.
I know Matt and I keep saying we're going to do a WSL video one of these days because we're using it on a daily basis, especially if you're doing a lot of things Dockerized. It's just pretty great. I'll tell you that I hear that from same things you're hearing, that I go into a community and they say, "Don't you have to install Windows in order to use .NET?" Oh, let me show you the world. It's not the same. Don't you have to be running I don't know, write code in Visual Basic in order to use Azure? No, not at all. So it's super interesting, just the wide variety of experiences you have and people who are on different phases of that journey. So as someone at Microsoft who is advising customers, do you still get? I know you gave an example earlier today, but you still get that a lot where you're talking to people about, okay, here's the wide variety ecosystems that's supported, and here's how to stay open, stay portable, build on OSS and still take advantages of the Microsoft Cloud.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of the services, the past offerings, you can use .NET, you can use Java, Python, whatever language of choice will treat you as a first-in-class citizen, right, on Azure. It's at the end of the day, most of your workloads are running in a container, right? Probably a Docker container. So the language is really irrelevant, right? You're going to just be dependent on some base runtime, whatever you choose, and
Yeah.
so be it. The container they're offering is what is the compelling reason to go to Azure. Now, with that being said, of the many services, there is a awesome service out there, Azure Spring Cloud. So for those open source developers, like this is one of those exciting PaaS offerings that the other clouds don't offer. That is compelling for Java developers and primary Spring Boot developers. But yeah, at the end of the day, if you're containerized, and even if you're not, like with app service, for example, we'll containerize your workload for you. Just tell us your app server and your runtime. So I didn't know about any of this, right? So I was heads down, we're architecting framework code, Spring framework. And when I heard about Azure, I was like, I don't do .NET. Like this isn't for me. So it was a wake up call to just get in there, start playing around in the portal and building things. And I was like, whoa, I should give this a deeper look. Like maybe there's some there's some meat and potatoes here.
So let's talk about meat and potatoes. That's the perfect segue. Chris, we're going to definitely get you on a little bit later because you have a really great demo, Azure Pet Store. That's an end-to-end PaaS demo that you deploy a lot of services. You're using a variety of different frameworks and containers and an even wider variety of Azure services. It's a great way that if you're just trying to demo things, whether you're sharing it with one of your customers or you or yourself want to just try a lot of different Azure services to see how the puzzle pieces fit together, it's just phenomenal at that. And Chris, we're definitely going to have you on to talk about that in depth. But if you and I were in the elevator for 3 floors, you had to give me the elevator pitch for Azure Pet Store, what would it be?
Yeah, great question. So AzurePetStore.com, it's really just open source software to think of it as a catalyst to drive Azure services. Yeah, you can use it to learn about software development, specifically Spring Boot. That's what the apps, the microservices and apps were built in. But it's really just a way for you to deploy into Azure and test end to end, right? I've been a full stack developer, everything from JavaScript, HTML, and model view controller apps, all the way to the back end, right? Microservices, API management, data. So I wanted the ability to understand it like end to end, so I could speak to my customers and help them on their journey. And really the best way to do that for me was to just get in there and start building. Now we have various tutorials out there, open source tutorials, but I wanted to build my own to see what it was like to build from the ground up. And that's what it is. AzurePetStore.com is a e-commerce, hypothetical e-commerce website. I don't expect you to go out there and purchase, pet products. It's a hypothetical pet store where you can do that, right? It's all hypothetical. There's a shopping cart and you can submit an order, but nothing gets shipped. Under the cover, if you follow the GitHub README markdown guides, it walks you through all of the steps to do so, how to containerize a Java app or any app, how do you build a Docker image, how to deploy in the Azure Container Registry. What do our container solutions look like? How do you do end-tiered correlated telemetry and all the various compelling Azure features are available right in that tutorial. And I just wanted that firsthand experience. And building that out allows you in the elevator, anyone listening on the call to get that benefit as well. So
It sounds amazing, Chris. I know if I let you, you can go for another half an hour at Azure Pet Store. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do it in February. We're gonna go for a half an hour, and we're gonna walk through it with you and just go into detail so that anybody could deploy and get the user environment. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming on.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, and really enjoyed talking with you today. For everyone else, make sure you subscribe to our channel, set up notifications, everything you need to do so that you know when we go live and you can see these videos. Maybe you can participate in the chat. We are really excited to have Chris back immediately next month to go deep into Azure Pet Store because can you see the excitement in my face because I can see it right while we're looking at the camera. So thank you all again, and we will see you all next time.